Fat bikes are what got me back into mountain biking after like 10-15 years of not really going. That was about 10 years ago, and in this video I want to talk about how my view on fat bikes has changed over time, as well as my actual fat bike setup has changed over time. So let's get into it. If you've seen some of my other videos, you may have noticed I got a new camera. It's the Insta360 X5. I've been playing around with it a lot. It's pretty cool because it's a 360 camera. I've never had one before, but it gives me lots of different opportunities. So I mostly still ride with it here on my chest mount, just kind of mounted up. But then I've also got this cool little stick on my head called the unicorn stick. It goes right here on the end and get some pretty cool like third-person view shots that are pretty easy to record. I've had this bike for 4 years now, and that's the longest I've owned any bike in the last decade. So this has been a great fat bike. I love the geometry. I love how it's more modern than a lot of fat bikes, but it also doesn't take it too extreme to where it's still got like rack mounts and a fairly large frame triangle, things like that. But the bike I started out on when I got back into biking was a Salsa Muckluck, and it was rigid. It had 26 by 4 inch tires. I got it after I'd been out of college for a couple years, and the goal was to have something that could be my ride all the time, all year round. That's where the title of this channel actually kind of comes from. But a do-it-all bike. So when I got it, I rode it on everything, and the capability blew me away. After that, I went through a few other bikes, slightly newer Muckluck, a framed Wolfjack's Carbon. I had a Trek Farley EX8, so a full suspension, to go progressively more towards mountain bike behavior. I was just trying to have it be ultra capable and geared towards more of just like dirt riding. That's one reason that I love the Mare. Like I said, it doesn't have a super steep head tube angle. It's 67 up front, 74 in the back. Perfect. But I did over fork it for a while, so it was even slacker, more travel, and it was a beast. I also ran it a lot with 29 plus. But there was one thing last year that kind of changed my focus and changed my view on fat bikes, and it's really changed up my setup. As you'll notice, I don't have a suspension fork on. My chainstays are slid all the way back, so it's nice and long. I don't even have a dropper post on here anymore. I took that off. Do I wish I had that sometimes? Yeah, I do. Oh, that was a bad line choice. So I said there was an event last year that made me change my setup, but that's not really true. I guess there's a few things. One is I slowly accumulated a couple of 29 plus bikes. So when it comes to summer riding, that's what I ride. I kind of ended up realizing I never rode this bike in the summer. Sometimes I would, because both of those bikes don't have suspension. I would ride this if I felt like I was gonna ride something extra chunky and I wanted a hardtail. Those two bikes also kind of solidified my, I wouldn't say dislike of suspension. Still love suspension, think it's an absolute necessity for some people and some trails. But for me, I really like the feel of high volume tires and a rigid fork. So that's one reason I ended up putting a rigid fork on this, is because if I like 29 plus tires with a rigid bike, I'm gonna like fat tires on it probably even more. The event that I referred to was Fat Pursuit. So that's a 60K or 200K snow event, endurance event outside of Island Park, Idaho. And even though I've ridden fat bikes for years, there's very few times in that time that I've seen the amount of snow and the sheer amount of groomed trails and like snow winter infrastructure as you see going to that place. It's insane. They have, I don't know how much money they spend on grooming trails, but it's millions of dollars. But to go ride it on a fat bike and to see these people riding the 200K and just crushing it and their setups and everything like that, I was like, you know, this is what fat bikes are really all about. And it's like an adventure machine, an ultra endurance. We're not even ultra endurance. You don't even have to go that far. It's basically just like the most fun way to get out and ride a bike, feel like a kid again, and also to say, who knows what I'm gonna encounter, but my bike's gonna be up for it. I only did the 60K, so it's not like I was some huge endurance hero or anything like that. And I'm doing that ride again this year. I'm really excited for it. So a couple months ago, I set this back up in anticipation of the Fat Pursuit. It sounds way out, it's in January, but you know, I just thought, I'm not riding it really, I might as well set it up. The funny thing about that is, soon after that, I went on a ride with it, and I just hit all the same stuff I had hit on other bikes. And it brought me back to 10 years ago or whatever, when I got that Salsa Muckluck, and the simplicity of it, yet the capability that it had, felt special. It felt incredible. And it got me back into mountain biking after, yeah, a long time. It was just so fun, so easy, so simple. Is this true on other bikes? Yeah, it is, but it's not at the same time. It's a totally different feeling. It's a totally different amount of fun, and, or I guess kind of fun would be a better term. But like, look at this stuff. This isn't the nastiest rock garden out there, but here I am on a rigid bike, struggling for breath, just going up it. One other way I'll mention that my setup has changed is actually just the cockpit. I've traditionally run more of like a mountain bike riser bar, like 30 mils of rise, but now, right now I'm running these Jones bend bars. So it's the exact same as the loop, except missing the front. So it's a little bit lighter, a little more give. And then also the Mare has pretty low stack. That's the one thing that I don't love about it. So I've got this super fancy Wake stem from Amazon, 60 millimeters long, 17 degrees of rise. That just helps get it up a little bit higher, because I realized, again, comfort. I love comfort. And if I've got the comfort of the big squishy tires, might as well be sitting in a comfortable position. No, I just talked about not having a dropper on, how great that is, but this descent deserves a seat lowering. Take me back to 2010. A fat bike like this isn't gonna be for everyone, but I don't know, I feel like you should just at least try it, because the simplicity and how fun it ends up being because of that, and how it grips everything is just, I just love it. The other thing I love about it is that I can ride it like this and hit this black trail, which is only black because of the exposure mostly, but it's got, you know, these fun little rocky sections. And then tomorrow, if it snows, which it's supposed to actually, the fun doesn't have to stop. And I don't even have to change anything except for my clothes. And then I'm still out riding. Now, if you have a fat bike and you have suspension on it, or it's full suspension even, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. In fact, if I didn't have my other 29 plus bikes, you know, I'd have a suspension fork on here probably until it snowed, maybe even a little after. But just the way I've set up my bikes, I just don't have a need for it right now. I'm gonna finish out this ride on a little bit of probably my favorite section of this trail. But just as a reminder, let me know what you think of this camera in there. It kind of distorts things in different ways, but having it on my head is kind of cool. I used the Hover Air for a while to get those third-person views, but it was a little bit more of a hassle than this. So I'm pretty excited about it, but let me know what you think. The reality is you're also not going to be the fastest on a fat bike. The fun factor is just through the roof. And I think that the simpler you keep them, the simpler you keep your fat bike setup, the more fun you might have. At least for my tastes. I'm weird though. Everything I ride is a rigid bike. It's kind of weird, but give it a try. I've got a whole video on that, on how rigid bikes are so fun. But anyway, that's all I've got for you. Just thought I'd share how fat bikes are just fun. And I think for a while there, I was getting a little too fancy with them. And if you keep them simple, you keep them just weirdly fun. You keep that monster truck kid feeling that you had when you were younger. But let me know what you think in the comments. If you ride a fat bike, if you've ridden one, what your thoughts are. Am I totally wrong? Am I off in the weeds? Which I've done a few times on this ride. Just let me know. Thanks for watching. See you next time.